Hi guys, welcome to the CLAT sessions with Prepco. We're going to be taking you through preparation for CLAT and law exams basically. And this session is going to be a short one. It's basically a section overview for verbal ability for the English section. The pattern's been actually changing a lot over the years. And it seems like they've now settled at a place where it's mostly reading comprehension based. In a way, that's a very good thing because you know where to focus. And it's not like some exams are very heavily vocab dependent. So you need to actually, like for example, the GRE is still in a state where you have to actually go through word lists. Thankfully, these guys are moving away from that. Everything now is getting to be more about comprehension. Even your legal reasoning section, your GK section, they're moving more from just memorizing stuff towards comprehension. And in nowhere is there more apparent and manageable than in the verbal ability section, because they're not testing any specific knowledge of any topics. They're just testing how well read you are, how good you are with English. So let's actually get into the overview first, and we'll discuss specific strategies and tips on how to manage the section. So the section breakup, out of the 150 odd total questions, English is going to be, verbal ability is going to be 28 to 32 questions. You're going to have questions on reading comprehension, sentence correction, phrases and idioms. In future sessions, we're going to be covering each of these in great detail. This one is just going to be an overview. Keep in mind that the focus on reading comprehension has been increasing over the years. Don't be surprised if you end up with an exam where the English section is essentially just 4 or 5 passages. Or in fact, even 3 passages with 9 to 10 questions each. They could do that. What are the elements involved in reading comprehension and the whole verbal ability section? Your grammar has to be great. You have to understand the different parts of speech. You have to understand commonly used idioms and phrases. We're going to have a whole session on that. And essentially sentence structure. What does this even mean? Basically, you should be able to break down a long sentence or maybe 20-25 words into its core elements and figure out what the author is actually trying to communicate. Once you can do that, you could have a sentence that's a full paragraph and it won't confuse you. So understanding sentence structure is very important. What are parts of speech? Your nouns, verbs, adjectives, etc. Now, this is not a theory exam. They're not going to be asking you identify the adjectives and what is it, a reflexive pronoun, is it a reflective pronoun? They're not going to be asking you that. This is not a class 5 English theory exam. But you do need to know what they are. Why? So that if you come across them in a sentence, let's say they give you sentence correction questions. Given the timing of the exam, you're going to not have more than 40 to 45 seconds to solve sentence correction questions. So you need to be able to very quickly identify what the problem with the sentence is. So if you've done a lot of practice on, for example, pronouns, and you know the 5 or 6 different kinds of pronoun problems that can occur, you will very quickly be able to look at the sentence, say, aha, this should not say myself, it should say me, for example, and very quickly solve the problem. Then if you have 5 options and 3 of them are saying myself, very quickly you're looking at only the other 2, and then you're looking for other problems in those sentences to figure out which of those 2 is correct. So basically, that's what you're essentially doing. You're figuring out the parts of speech so that if you come across them in a sentence, you can very quickly identify what the problem is. Vocab. I did say vocab is not everything. It's absolutely not. But a good vocabulary that comes from reading a lot is very important. It's a law exam. They are going to be testing you on your knowledge. In the legal abilities section, definitely. That also comes from a lot of relevant reading. Quick reading is very important. If it's all RC passages, reading comprehension passages, you can't afford to spend 6 minutes reading a passage. You just don't have that luxury. You need to be in and out of the passage in 3 to 4 minutes tops and hit the questions. Also, if you're having passages, if you're given passages with 7 or 8 or 9 questions each, skimming and scanning doesn't work. We're going to come on that in the reading comprehension section. But basically, you need to be able to quickly read and understand the elements of the passage, what the author is talking about, why he's saying something in a particular manner, versus just, okay, let me just attack the questions and come back and look for the answers. That might work for very, very specific information based questions. When did this happen? 1819? Okay, great. In most cases, it won't help you. So, being able to quickly read the whole passage and understand it is is probably the most vital thing. Ability to quickly parse through a full page of text and answer questions based on it immediately after. That's pretty much exactly what I was saying in the last point. Read a lot and understand it and know where to go back, which is basically figure out what is relevant. There's going to be a lot of information thrown at you to confuse you. You need to be able to, while doing the first reading, figure out, okay, this part is going to be important. I need to either understand it right now or sort of mark it somewhere in my head. Okay, this was discussed in the second paragraph. For example, if there's a passage on pesticides and they throw the whole name at you, DDT, dichloro, diphenyl, trichloroethane, you, like a lot of people will get confused, right? This is a really long technical term, and if even mentally, if you try reading the whole thing, you're going to get confused. So what you could actually just do is, okay, the second paragraph is talking about a chemical name which starts with D and it's a really long chemical name. So then you know, if there's a question on that specific chemical name that starts with a D, you know where to go back to. This way you won't get confused. The most important thing for the English section is reading comprehension. It's going to impact your progress across the whole section and in logical reasoning and in legal reasoning and in general knowledge. The whole exam is moving towards a comprehension based structure. Even your general knowledge section is now not just simply questions on what happened, when did this happen. They're moving towards more of giving you a passage and giving you questions, then not based on that passage. You do need general knowledge skills there, but related to that passage, related to that paragraph. So reading comprehension, quick reading comprehension, good reading comprehension affects the entire paper, and it's the difference between completing the whole exam and leaving 10 questions behind because you can do it in time. So speed and accuracy is everything, and reading comprehension is going to give you both. So the aim in RC, in reading comprehension, is not just to hunt for answers like I was saying. It's not just, okay, go to the questions and go back, look for answers. Your accuracy will be really low, and in fact even your speed is going to be low there. The aim is to understand what the author is trying to convey. And how do you do that? 3 key questions you have to answer. What is the author writing about? So what is the scope? So basically you could have a passage on the 1971 war, but the scope is not necessarily the war. What is the author talking about? She could be talking about 2 friends, like it could be a fiction piece, for example. 2 friends who were soldiers in the 1971 war, one from Punjab and one from Tamil Nadu, and their experience and how they stayed in touch after the war, for example. So what is the author talking about? In your head you have to think of it in one line, not the author is talking about the 1971 war. That's too vague. Just think of it as the author is talking about the experience of 2 friends, one from Punjab, one from Tamil Nadu, who were soldiers during the 1971 war, and their experience. Next is, why is she writing it? What is the point the author is trying to make? What is the purpose of writing this passage? Is it, for example, it could be an opinion piece on how war lays waste to everything around and there is no good war, for example. Or it could be how, through the example of these 2 people, she's trying to convey that war is an evil, but it's a necessary evil. So here she's expressing an opinion through the example of these 2 people. Or if it's a passage on pesticides, it could just simply be a very factual piece on the problems caused by the use of DDT and why it's been banned in most countries. There could be an opinion at the end, there could not be an opinion. So, why is she writing this? Maybe just to inform you of certain things that happened. Maybe to give the background behind an act in a country that has banned DDT. Maybe to give you, and maybe for a newspaper opinion piece, she's giving an opinion why the ban is great, or maybe it's great but it's problematic because there's no alternative for the farmers to use. So the why is essentially getting into the core of everything, all the reasons for the author to write this passage. Maybe she's been commissioned by a newspaper to write an opinion piece. That's helping. The why of the passage, the core point of the passage, the main point of the author is going to be most likely in the first or the last paragraph of the passage. When we actually go through the reading comprehension session, we'll go through a couple of opinion pieces in newspapers to basically go through where you can find out why the author is writing this passage. And finally, what is the tone? Is she just reporting something factually, or is there an opinion involved? Why is this important? This is basically the how has it been written, in what tone. This is important for you to be able to gauge the source. This is actually a pretty common question. Where do you think this passage has been taken from? Is it a movie review? Is it an opinion piece? Is it a newspaper report? Is it a book? Is it a scientific journal? Is it a law journal? This will come from understanding how the passage has been written, the tone of the author. So, if you can answer these three questions, you're halfway through already. And given enough practice, once you've done reading the passage, this will take you 30 seconds to answer. All three, 30 to 45 seconds, let's say. And you're very likely to get a question that is directly related to one of these three questions. At least one question, could be more, in which case your return on investment of that 45 seconds is very high because you've answered a question. So definitely do this, and again, we're going to discuss this in greater detail. So understanding the core message, why is it important? Because it will help you speed up and improve your accuracy. Speed and accuracy is everything. And you're basically getting both by understanding the core message in reading comprehension, in sentence correction, in logical reasoning, in GK, in legal reasoning. Basically everything except for maths. So this is why it is very, very important. Accuracy is more important than speed, but you need both. You can't do without either. And how do you actually go about improving RC skills? Read a lot of books. You can't do without that. Fiction and non-fiction. And read a lot of newspapers and not just the edit page. Why do I say that? This is an important point. I've actually had a lot of students who would read the editorial page because, it feels good. It feels that, the one purpose of knowledge is to form an opinion. Like if you're generally having a conversation with a friend, they're not going to ask you what happened today. Give me 3 headlines that happened today. No, they're going to ask you, okay, the farm bills have just been passed. As I'm recording this in September, that's recent news. What do you think? So, a strong opinion is respected. You attend an interview for a college admission, and they're not going to ask you, tell me the main headline from today. They're not just testing if you have read the newspaper. They are testing if you have absorbed the importance of the news and what, in your view, is important about what happened today. So the interviewer is not likely to ask you, okay, what is radium and what is thorium? They're likely to ask you, should nuclear energy be a part of India's energy mix? Is it safe? Is it unsafe? So for that you have to form an opinion. And the edit page, the editorial page, the opinion section of any newspaper is where these well-educated intellectual opinions are found. The risk is that you just take the opinion without the backing information that is required. It is all too well to pick up an opinion. Let's say Derek O'Brien or Amit Shah have composed an editorial, or Piyush Goyal is writing about how railways are doing much better now. You have to understand the underlying facts and then gauge if it is a strong argument, if you agree with the opinion based on the facts that are given. It is obviously a biased, any opinion is by definition is coming from a particular bias or a slant. No opinion is totally neutral, then it would just be facts. So to form your own opinions, you need to be able to look at the underlying facts that are stated and then form an opinion based on that. So if you're reading the edit page, you need the critical thinking ability to absorb those facts, to read the opinion and see if it is a strong argument in either way and if you agree with it. This is of course very important for reading comprehension and GK, but this is vital for the logical reasoning section. Because the logical reasoning section is essentially, here are some facts and you might be given an opinion, or you'll be asked, what can you conclude from these facts? The essence of forming an argument is basically this. The edit page exists to present you with arguments. The headline might be an opinion, the subheading might be one more line about that opinion in greater detail, and then the first paragraph and the last might be the opinion. Everything else in between is facts or data to support that opinion. This is the essence of strong critical reasoning and logical reasoning skills. So the edit page is very important, but from this perspective, understand how are people forming their opinions. Write a lot. Write a summary of everything you need. If you've read a book, write a few pages of summary. Imagine you've been hired by the New York Times or Hindustan Times or whatever to basically write a review of a book. Let's say a 2,000 word review. Imagine you're doing that and then write a summary of the book, including relevant facts that you gained from it, including what you think of the author's writing style, including what you think of the opinions and the facts that have been presented in there. So write it as if you have been engaged by a newspaper to present your opinion to the world, to present your review to the world. If you read a long article, do the same, but maybe in one page summarize what you read in the article. This is a very, very valuable skill, even if no one ends up reading your first few pieces. Nobody will, unless you're already an established author. This is a very, very valuable skill because eventually you'll get really good at it. And it helps you construct strong arguments. Reading comprehension and critical reasoning involve a lot of the same skills, argument building. So the more you write, the more, while you're writing, you will understand, okay, I said the book is good, or I think the book is good, why? It'll help you get into your own head and basically figure out what exactly you've gained from the book, and how to structure your argument, how to write it in a manner that your reader is understanding it very, very clearly. So you'll become a much better reader and a much better parser of arguments if you start writing. Then do a lot of practice tests, of course, and this is very important, a lot of analysis of those practice tests. Every minute you spend doing a test, spend a minute analyzing that test. A 2-hour exam, you should be spending 2 hours analyzing it. An interesting thing I noticed in a lot of students, when I've discussed in my classes about guesswork, should you guess or should you not? A lot of people end up saying that, I always get my guesses wrong. And I tell them, no, that's statistically not possible. Or rather, it's a very, very, very low probability. Like people say that, okay, if out of 150 questions, I guessed 50 while they're analyzing, or let's say 30. They say I got all 30 wrong. That's very, very, very improbable. What is actually, and I've seen a lot of students say this, What is actually happening is that they are only analyzing the answers that they got wrong. They're not analyzing the answers that they got right. And even the ones they got right, there was some that they were guessing. They just didn't analyze these. So they only end up seeing the ones that they got wrong, and they think that somehow all their guesses were wrong. I've seen people, I've sat with students and reanalyzed the exam, and a lot of people get 50% of the guesses correct. Now, probability wise, if you have no clue, let's say you have 5 options, probability wise, 20% of those should be correct. It's not 0, it's not 100. But what's happening is, if you can eliminate 2 options, then it's down to 1 and 3. So you improve the odds to 33%. If you're down to 2 options and then you're guessing, it's 1 and 2. You've improved your odds to 50%. So that's essentially what you're doing. And if you don't analyze everything, every single question, even the ones you got right, if you don't look at them as how many of the questions I got right was I sure of the answer, how many that I got right was a pure guess, how many did I bring down to a strong guess by eliminating options, of the ones you got wrong, how many were a pure guess, how many were a strong guess, how many did I actually understand everything and then at the end made a silly mistake. Silly mistakes are the most costly, because here, see, if you don't know anything about a particular answer, about a particular question, okay, you might have those. But if you know how to tackle a question, you've studied that topic, you're strong at it, and then because of a lack of concentration you make a silly mistake, that's where the problem actually really lies. That is a much more expensive mistake than getting a question that you didn't know at all wrong, because here was a very highly probable score of a 1 on that question, but you ended up getting it wrong. This is purely a lapse of concentration causing silly mistakes, and it's very expensive. So that's what you need to avoid. And analyzing a lot, all the questions you got wrong, all the questions you got right, is very, very important. So we're going to have eventually we're going to do a long session on how to analyze exams also. So my mouse has stopped working. Yes. What should I read for RC and improving comprehension skills? It depends on your interest. I am not going to say, oh, only read this, or only read Tolstoy, or only read Tolkien, or only read Chetan Bhagat, or only read William Dalrymple. If I make you read something that you don't like reading, you won't read it. Or you read half a book and give up and just won't read again. Versus if there's a particular genre of fiction or non-fiction that you really like, you'll end up reading many, many books. So it's very important basically to be reading a lot. And we're going to be putting links in the description of the video to some recommendations. Let's go through the list very briefly. Sci-fi and fantasy. There's basically Dune is a very good book. It's basically sci-fi, fantasy, politics, religion, all mixed into one. There's actually a Dune movie coming out. Trailer looks fantastic. So if you read it and you enjoy sci-fi, you have something to look forward to. There's The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the full set of 5 books. The first one is an absolute must read, the second one is brilliant, the third one is okay, the fourth one is boring, and the fifth one, I don't know what was going on in his mind when he wrote that. But still, very funny and very interesting books. So that's a strong one. The Harry Potter series is really, really good. His Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman, The Amber Spyglass, The Golden Compass, and I've forgotten the name of the third one. That's basically, again, a mix of sci-fi and fantasy. Graphic novels, I love the Alan Moore books. V for Vendetta, if you've seen the movie, you should definitely read the book. It's a great movie and also a fantastic graphic novel. There's 300, which the book is better than the movie. Movie wasn't bad. I still love the Asterix comics, which I read in school multiple times. And they're still very, very, very funny books. Tintin's great. Batman, there's a few very good graphic novels. The Killing Joke, there's The Dark Knight Returns. Then The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which was a really boring movie in 2013, I think, starring Nasruddin Shah and a bunch of other people. The book is really good. You could like humor. There's P.G. Wodehouse. There's again Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. There's Catch 22, which is a big, fat, dense book, but really interesting and funny. Dave Barry is quick humor reading. Non-fiction, there's too many of them to even pick a genre. To be honest, if you like economics, then Tim Harford has written a couple of good books. The Undercover Economist is a good quick read. Freakonomics, I used to recommend. My own views have changed a lot on that book since then, but it's still a good read that shows how different things impact a lot of different things that you might not expect. One law passed in the US in the 1960s might make a difference to life in the 1990s, for example. Young adult fiction, the Twilight series, I personally am not a fan, but if that rocks your boat. Percy Jackson is a good series. Charlotte's Web is a good one. Roald Dahl has written a lot. Matilda, My Family and Other Animals. The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night Time is a good one. Catcher in the Rye is classic young adult fiction. Actually, it's so old now it won't even call it young adult. Indian mythology, Amish Tripathi has written a lot of books. Devdutt Patnaik. Literary fiction, To Kill a Mockingbird and the sequel, The Handmaid's Tale, The Kite Runner. Leave links to a lot of these books in the description. Just start reading whatever, just try a few if you don't read a lot already, and see what kind of genre of reading you like and just go deeper in that direction. Vocabulary, yes, it is important. Finally, you need to have a good vocab. You shouldn't get confused in the middle of a passage. What does this word mean? However, it is not everything. Don't start mugging up word lists. It won't help you. At best, you'll remember, oh my god, this is a word that I read when I was doing that word list. You won't remember the definition. You won't remember examples, because unless you're reading 5,000 words or something, it's not going to be beneficial. The odds are very low. And 5,000 words means you won't remember 4,900 of them. So I wouldn't recommend it. Idiom lists, yes, because there are 200-300 very common idioms, and it's about usage. So you will see examples when reading those. Those are important, and you could get questions directly on those. Vocabulary and word lists, not so much. So that's that for this lesson on the overview of the verbal ability section on for CLAT. We're going to get deeper into every single element of this section in future sessions. So yeah, good luck for the exam and see you soon for the next lesson. Thank you.